In our previous video, we had a discussion about, DHIS2 automated install, and that automated the deployment of a single instance. And then in our, the next video was just like adding an instance. You have one instance that you want to use as a production, and you want to add another instance that you want to use maybe for development or for testing. And in all the instances that we deployed, the only access that we had was with the IP address. An example is, when you wanted to access the prod, you had to type real IP address of the server and and the path, base path, and there was a warning, that your connection is not secure. That is because the certificate that is being used in that instance is a self-signed certificate, and self-signed certificate is not usually trusted by browsers like Chrome or whatever the browser that you're using. And this is not a very nice way of us accessing our instance, like because you'd have to remember the IP address. It's not human friendly. So today we want to discuss now how we can configure and set the domain that we can use to access our instances. And there are three important concepts when we talk about the domain. One is, what is the domain, first of all, before we proceed? Two is, what is the DNS, domain name system, DNS? Because these two things, these are the two concepts that at least we should have an idea what we're talking about. And last but not least is transport layer security, TLS certificate. What is it? You saw the error. Even right now, you see that this website is not secure, right? It's because the certificate that we have here is a self-signed certificate. Let's see if we can, yeah, you can, it's not secure. The certificate detail, there's a certificate. It's a self-signed certificate, right? So we're going to talk about these two concepts. What is the domain? The domain is, it's a human-friendly way that we use to address our servers. Instead of using this IP address 172.104.232.21, you use a human-friendly name like example.com, for example, dhis2.org, right? When you want to access dhis2 documentation, just type dhis2 .org, maybe docs at the beginning, .dhis2.org, and you want to go to the server documentation manage, getting started, automated install with Ubuntu. You didn't have to type the IP address of the server that is hosting this documentation. But in reality, this is actually translated because you can go to your terminal and type host dhis2 docs.dhis2.org, and you realize that this is mapped to the real IP address. So the computers would know that to reach docs.dhis2.org, you have to translate that first to the real IP address, because computers knows IP addresses. They don't really understand the domain per se. It's us humans that we do understand the domains, but what eventually happens is that that is translated to the real IP address, and then that is when the routing thing happens now, the network layer, and so forth and so forth. But getting started with the domain, where are you getting this domain, and how do you even register? Where do you begin? And this domain, there are registrars, that usually with them you get to buy the domain, you get to register the domain, and by that I mean you just register and buy it from them for a given period, and then you just then continue renewing that domain. An example is Namecheap that I've used in the past. There's also GoDaddy. There's even Cloudflare, if you want to use that, for example. So with the domain of your interest, you can say dhis2 dot maybe demo, for example. Just set that and see if you can find that domain, and you see, top level domain, it's invalid. I mean, the demo part is invalid. But you can find dhis2.com. It's a premium. It's very expensive. The reason why it's premium is because, Maybe somebody has bought this domain and they're willing to sell it. Number two is because the name is very short. You can't find dhs2.org here because that is the domain that is being actually used right now for our dhs2, and you don't find you can't find that on sale here. So you just find this because it's it's being offered. You can also try buying, even Kitkurgat, just find that. And you'll see you can find a few domains with kitkurgat.to.org. They're on sale, and yeah, you see .org is under $10. It's about 7.48, the price is 7.48 per annum, and it's renewable at you can renew at that also. Here you can buy the domain. It's like you're registering that domain and you pay that fee. And I have one already that I'm gonna use for demo purposes. Let me just log into this. So it's gonna ask for my two-factor authentication. Let me try using this. Yeah, okay, and submit. It's now logged in. Then I'm gonna go to my account, maybe just domain list. And you'll see that I have a domain. It's called dtas2.academy. I bought this domain. We were using it for demonstration in one of the server academy. And you can come here and manage your domain. One very important thing that you could do here is DNS. Here, you can add a records, address records, like map IP address to the domain, the IP address to this domain, IP address to this domain, just something like that. Okay. Um, but now, here, this is disabled for this domain specifically because I'm not using DNS service from this domain registrar. You could do that, but for me, I decided to use name servers from Linode. And in the past, also, I've used name servers from Cloudflare, right? That is where you're hosting your DNS in a separate service provider. You're hosting your DNS elsewhere. So here I'm hosting DNS in Linode, but the domain itself is being hosted and the registrar is Namecheap, right? From here, you could even transfer your domain. You can even sell your domain. That is why you saw we were searching data2.com. It was a premium domain because somebody has bought it and they're selling it at a premium. You could decide to sell this domain if it is, yeah. And you can even transfer. I've in the past transferred my domain from Namecheap to Cloudflare. You log into Cloudflare right now. Cloudflare login. I have a domain here already that I'm managing, and this domain has name records. Okay, let me just see. It has the records mappings. It has mappings. You see here, address record. A stands for address, IP version 4 address to be specific. And I'm mapping dev to my, my server. I am mapping docs to my server. All these server. I own all these servers to be clear that this server, even this that you see here is the server that we're going to be using for demonstration. You see all these subdomains, so to speak, they have A records and they are mapped to this server. So this domain was initially hosted in Namecheap. That is where I registered initially, but I transferred, right? So you could transfer your domain from one registrar to another and pack it there. Okay. Now I'm not managing DNSs here because I chose not to manage DNSs here. I'm using another DNS provider. What is a DNS, first of all? DNS is domain name system. It's like you want to now map your domain to the IP addresses, subdomains to IP addresses, right? So then you need to add these records. And they're not just A records. You can map A records, you can map text records, you can map mail records, MX records, and so forth. But today is just about mapping A records, address records, IP address records, right? IP version 4 to be specific. Like if you type in your terminal dig, say Google or docs.kipkurgat.com, for example, it's telling you that this subdomain, because This is the domain. KeepCoolCat.com is the parent domain. But docs dot is now the subdomain of, or rather the child of KeepCoolCat.com. Docs.keepcoolcat.com, which is the subdomain of KeepCoolCat.com, is mapped to my server 129.151.169.55. So this is an A record. You see, even here that the dict is telling us this is an A record. Okay, and I could say also, yeah, give you another example, like maybe dev.replicate.com is mapped to, this server and this server. Okay, okay. This is because of the Cloudflare's DNS, proxy DNS service, right? They are like, before you access your real server, uh, Cloudflare acts as a proxy. Traffic goes to their servers, and then they're gonna route traffic now with through their network to your real backend server. That's why you see these two servers here. Okay. Now, but you see, there's an A record that is mapped to our subdomain. That is the concept that I wanted to explain. And for demonstration purposes, I've told you that for this datastudio.academy, I'm using Cloud Linode uh, uh, DNS, and I'm going to log into that DNS right now and do a mapping. Linode, let me just log into Linode. You see, I have datastudio.academy. This domain is not hosted here, but the DNS service is hosted here. You see, because from the Namecheap side, I instructed my registrar that for DNS stuff, use Linode name servers, name server 1, name server 2, name server 3, name server 4. That is what you see. Let's just go back to this. You see all these. I even did include name server 5, but name server 1 and 4, you see clearly they're listed here. And now you can come here and add a records manually. I have a record here that is mapping the root of the domain, parent domain, naked domain, so to speak. It's not a subdomain, it's a parent. It's mapped to my server, and I can add another A record here. Say, for the subdomain, say prod, map it to my server's IP address, okay? And you save. Okay, so right now, if you go to your terminal and type host, sorry, okay, tmax, it's a search. Let me just log into the remote server. Okay, host, what was the IP address or the subdomain prod.dhs2 dot academy. You'll see that this is not yet resolving. Okay, it's because DNS domain records usually takes a few minutes to propagate the internet and be available in all the DNS servers. And let's just quickly demonstrate that DNS propagation checker. This website that you could use really to check the extent or how far is your domain propagated. Let me just test. It's prod.dhs2.academy. How far is this domain propagated? And you see right now it's been propagated in most parts of Europe, Asia, and some parts of the America, and it's still not propagated in some of the, like South Africa, South America, Africa here. It's not yet India. It's not yet propagated. But you continue refreshing these, and you will see that after a few minutes or so, this domain is going to be propagated in all these places. Okay, and it's an A record. As you see, we just added an A record. It's not a text record, common name record. It's not a mail service record, MX. It's just an A record, right? So right now, it's gonna change. It's gonna keep changing, right? And we go back to the terminal and try it again, host, and you see that right now is our server is able to sort of get the IP address from that subdomain. Okay, so that means in our deployment tools, you can use this domain. Let's talk about the third concept, the TLS. When I was accessing the server 172.104.232.21, okay, we don't even put anything. It's going to rewrite for us. You see that? This connection is not secure. It's telling us that this page is not secure because it's not trusting this certificate, right? But you can show details and view the certificate if you want, or you can visit the website the way it is. You just don't care, and then that is when you get the page of your DHIS2 instance. So why is that? It's because the certificate that we get there is not trusted. Our browser is not trusting it. Why is it not trusting it? Because it's a self-signed certificate, and in our browser's list of trusted certificate issuing authorities, TS, our self-signed certificate is not included. It's not in that list. And it's not able to just trust that. Maybe this is somebody in the middle trying to impersonate. Major certificate issuing authorities, they don't usually issue TLS certificate to the IP addresses. They issue TLS certificates to the domains. That is why we talked about domain a few minutes ago. Before you even start thinking about these certificates, you have to buy the domain from the registrar, and you have to map subdomain or even the domain to your server's IP address. What is the TLS certificate now? First of all, it's authenticating your server, okay? Because the TLS certificate has your server's domain or the subdomain. It also has the public key. It also has the signature of the issuing authority. If it's Let's Encrypt, it has the signature for the Let's Encrypt, and it has a chain, of the intermediate certificate, root certificate from Let's Encrypt and so forth. And also, it also has the validity timeline, like how long is your certificate going to be valid? 3 months, 1 year, yeah, and so forth. It's going to be used also for encrypting traffic between your browser and the backend server. So it's doing two things: authenticating and validating that you are really who you claim you are. Number two, whatever happens between you and the backend service or DHIS2 web app is encrypted. And that means whoever is going to be in the middle is not going to eavesdrop and see whatever that's happening between you and the backend web application DHIS2 instance. Yeah. So you have options. You can either buy these TLS certificates also from these. There are people, these certificate authorities that sells TLS certificates. You just buy TLS certificates, and after that, of course, there are things that happens. First of all, you need to prove that you're really the owner of the domain. Perhaps you use the air record verification, the mapping and so forth, or you can use the text record verification, and then whoever you're buying the domain from is going to issue the certificate signing request to your server, or there's ways you can verify that. And after you're verified that you are the owner of the domain, then you are issued a certificate. Okay. Alternatively, you can use Let's Encrypt. Right? You can use Let's Encrypt to sort of request this TLS certificate, and they're going to issue a certificate to you. But before they issue a certificate to you, they have to authenticate that you're really the owner of the domain that you're claiming you are owning. For me, I am claiming that I own this domain, DHIS2.academy. So how am I going to prove that using the A record? I'm going to prove that I'm owning this domain, because if you type host.prod.dhis2.academy, it maps to my server. And to prove that I am owning this domain, then I should also prove that I have access to this server and allow Let's Encrypt to authenticate that with this server, right? Because what happens is that when you configure Let's Encrypt, it's gonna try to connect to your server, ACME, protocol, right? And then it tries to prove that you really the owner of this server, and that's the owner of this domain. And after that, it's going to issue certificate to you. But usually they issue certificate that is valid for only 3 months, and then you have to keep renewing that. And they issue certificate also to this subdomain, not the old domain. If you want a wildcard certificate, then you're gonna use another method. You're gonna use text record for that. That's not to issue you the wildcard certificate for all your the domain and all the sub records, right? But that is, it's a separate topic on its own. So yeah, then let's go and try to do that with the tools.